Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? We got a brand new episode of Buy or Bust for you guys. We're going to be talking about Nightmare. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, some key synergies, key counters, 3 decks, the floor, and the ceiling for this card. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in case you guys did not know, the brand new Series 5 card released on Tuesday is going to be Nightmare, which is a 3-cost, -1 power card. On reveal, replace the text of each card in your hand with text of a random card of the same exact cost. You'll see what this actually looks like on screen. You do actually see what card it looks like visually when the text is swapped, as well, of course, you'll have the text swapped on the card itself. But let's go ahead and talk about some key synergies and some key counters for this card. So, of course, starting off first and foremost, Sauron. The reason why they nerfed Sauron and made him a 1-cost instead of a 2-cost and making it so we can only hit the cards in your deck is because Nightmare exists. And, you know, you play Sauron, and then, yes, of course, the text is removed off your cards. But then if you don't have the Sauron in your hand, you have Nightmare to kind of get value elsewhere. Those cards that have those very just horrible ongoings, which you're using Sauron for anyways, to remove those ongoings, you get the value from Nightmare. Of course, also Infinite. Infinite is one of those cards. Infinite, Giganto, potentially even Destroyer are 3 cards where you don't necessarily want the text they have on them. Infinite, of course, you have to skip the turn before to be able to play Infinite. Giganto, you can only play on the left. And Destroyer, of course, destroys the other cards in the other 2 lanes. So those are some potential shouts there when it comes to the bigger cards. And also Agatha. You can remove the text off of Agatha so she doesn't control your hand at all. Of course, she will be able to play out your turn 2 unless you're able to get, you know, your Nightmare out very earlier than that. But it allows you to kind of enable yourself to make sure you have kind of full control there. It's kind of just like in the same kind of category as like the Infinite and stuff, but like Agatha is another option. Now, counters. You have Cosmo. It's an on-reveal card, so Cosmo can negate you being able to actually be able to play out your Nightmare and blocks you from being able to have that on-reveal go off. Also, Nightmare is a counter to Nightmare because you might not get the card text that you want, and you might get even worse text for your cards. So just keep that in mind, you know. Nightmare can also be a high roll or a low roll, so it is a card that can counter itself. And then, of course, Red Guardian, if you do have like a good ability on some of these other cards, you know, Red Guardian, of course, removes the text and afflicts the card with -2 power. Red Guardian just is a good card in general, so I'm just thinking like combo tech pieces, Red Guardian, Shang-Chi, Shadow King, like those are like the main like mitigations. Or even I think Rez or Drew talked about like Negasonic, you know, the card you played gets blown up, so Negasonic offsets that. But let's talk about the good and the bad for this card. So when it comes to the good for this card, you know, this you know, on reveal ability, it can make these bad cards text good cards, so it can make them actually playable. You know, your Starbrand getting removed from giving your opponents +3 power other locations to most other 3-drops is really solid, besides maybe a Green Goblin. Green Goblin would be pretty bad, but like Brood is a high roll, Sage, Gladiator honestly is really good too. Killmonger, Negasonic, Cosmo, you know, there's a bunch of just good solid options. Mobius that you can get for like 3-drops. Of course, there's the most 3-drops in the game, so there's a long list there. Even like 4-drops, there's value as well. It's a good snap condition. So like there's a lot of instances where you can snap into your Nightmare and your opponent has to either stay or retreat. It's kind of like snapping into negative in a sense. The difference is it's kind of more like an Airshim, but I think it's like the negative Airshim kind of scale for this card. Not saying it's going to be necessarily an Airshim, and not saying it's the power that negative Jane Foster is. But a snap before Nightmare is better than a snap after Nightmare. Because a snap before Nightmare, your opponents are more likely to stay, whereas a snap after Nightmare, you know, they might retreat, which we'll talk about here in a second. Another good thing is, you know, your opponents don't know what the cards change into, so they have to guess. What cards do you have in your hand, and what value are they getting from Nightmare? You know, what exactly are they about to throw down? Are they about to throw down a Typhoid Mary Shang-Chi? Am I about to get hit with a Brood Starbrand, or a Surfer Starbrand, a Cosmo Starbrand, and Juggernaut Starbrand? What exactly are my cards going to get hit by here? Like, what exactly do I need to plan out when it comes to the changes to this card? And I think there's more cards to change into that are good for you opposed to that are bad for you. So you get more value often than not from your Nightmare. Of course, there's going to be instances where you don't get what you need. But like the high rolls are going to feel great. But like even the middle rolls, like just the average kind of hits you can get, are going to be pretty good for the cards you're playing this with. Now when we talk about the bad, though. So it's a negative power. You're playing a 3 -1. So if you are fighting for priority, or if you are having a great start, you know, you're automatically going to have a negative power in a location. Granted, the upside is, what it changes the cards into. Same thing goes with negative. Like, you can play negative out on 3 with the Ravona or the Psylocke, but it kind of offsets your tempo. Granted, you're playing this card out because it's a combo card. So the negative power in that instance is not great. But as long as you're getting the value of it afterwards, that's really when it picks up, even if you do have the bad tempo. But you're not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to get better text for your cards. You're going to have instances where you get worse text for your cards, or just not good text. So just keep that in mind. It is a random number generator for whatever text your cards are going to get. So it'll be completely random. And then, of course, you do have to play the cards out with the text change in order to really get the value out of Nightmare, opposed to like an Erishim. Erishim, you at least have the upside of you have extra energy, and then you also have the random cards. But you have extra energy, and you know what cards you have in your deck already, so that gets you that plus there. And with Mr. Negative, yes, you have the negative power on the board, but you flip the cost and the power of the cards in your deck, so you're able to play out free cards. So that's the upside there with Negative and Erishim opposed to your Nightmare, because Nightmare, you aren't going to be able to like guarantee, what they're going to change into. Next, of course, quicker retreats. So, like, when I'm talking about cube equity with this card, snapping into a Nightmare is more often than not better than snapping post-Nightmare. Because snapping into Nightmare is snapping, like, into Mr. Negative, where snapping post-Nightmare is like snapping into Jane Foster. So, I mean, more the smarter, or the maybe just more just veteran or just used to Mr. Negative kind of players will retreat before a Jane Foster. Whereas, like, this is going to be a situation, do you snap before the Nightmare? Do you snap after the Nightmare? Cube equity is kind of what I'm looking at when it comes to some of the bad of this card. But let's look at the floor and the ceiling of this card now. So, looking at the floor and the ceiling. The worst case scenario, you play this on curve and all the cards in your hand suck, even with a text change. Or you draw this late and you don't get any value from Nightmare. That's the worst case scenario. In the middle, you play Nightmare out on curve, or maybe a little bit later, and you can play out 2 to 3 of the cards. And they have better abilities than they originally had, so you get some value there from Nightmare. Now, best case scenario. All the cards in your hand had the best text change possible. You had that Iron Man Red Skull, or that Blue Marvel Red Skull. And then you have, the Brood Starbrand. You have the value there. Like, if you have the great hits, you have the God hits. That is your ceiling. That's when you're feeling like, yo, this card is absolutely amazing. It's so OP. But, like, you're not going to get that all the time. Unless you have the best RNG in the world, you're not going to get that all the time. But just keep that in mind when you're building these decks, which, like, talking about these decks. The first deck I have is never bad, only better. Because you're playing a Starbrand, Sauron, Surtur, Scar list. And if you don't have the Sauron, you have the Nightmare to get value out of these cards. You dropped Ares for Nightmare. You're using Surge. I think it's Zenaid. I think that's how you say his name. I may have said his name wrong. This is like his list he originally had, and he had Ares in here instead. We're just having Nightmare in here. And you get the value of Starbrand, Cold Obsidian, Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, all changing into cards that are going to have better abilities. Of course, I don't have Ebony Maw in here. I have Surge in here for some better just like tempo in that sense. Surge hitting Nightmare makes him a 2-0, so you don't have negative power on the board. That's pretty good. Of course, like with Scar as well, you're not really going to be wanting to Nightmare when you have Scar in hand, because then Scar becomes Erishim. Since, Scar really can't become itself. That's the only other card at the same cost, at 7 cost for Scar. So just keep that in mind. But, like, the rolls you can get for this are normally going to be really solid. So a lot of really cool outcomes that you can get with this list. I think this is going to be like one of the main homes. It's just going to be Sauron. It just makes sense. There's a world maybe you drop Surtur and you have some other, like maybe you go greedier into the 4 costs since you're already running Zabu to get more Scar value. But of course, it'll be this, TBD, kind of seeing what happens there. Next, of course, we have an Agatha list. This is very similar to like the old Black Knight Agatha list. You're also using Black Bolt and Stature. Lady Deathstrike could become Claw. But the reason I have Lady Deathstrike in here as well is in case Nightmare hits Lady Deathstrike, a 5/7 with a different ability, I think is better than a 5/4 with a different ability. And Lady Deathstrike, like I said, Lady Deathstrike herself could actually become Claw in that situation. But I was looking at it in that sense, like if these cards were changed into Nightmare cards, what would I actually want to have instead potentially? That's why I went with the Lady Deathstrike over Claw. Of course, Fenris Wolf you have because you are using Moon Knight, you are using Black Bolt, so you have 2 different options to be able to mill your opponent to get value there. And then also Lady Deathstrike hitting some cards could be interesting too to get some of those cards back. And then you have Agatha in here with, you have Black Knight, you have Lady Sif, and you have Wave to be able to get Agatha out. potentially early, so there's value there. Going on to our next list, we got Dark Winds, which is kind of just a War Machine build with Nightmare. We're using Giganto, Infinite, Coal Obsidian, Ebony Maw as 4 potential cards that your Nightmare can hit, and you can just get value from. You have War Machine to be able to get into lanes. You have Storm. I don't really pour into the Legion stuff, so we're not putting Legion in this list. There's a world where you guys might want to put Legion here. I have Armor in here to protect some of these big cards potentially as well. Jennifer Kale to be able to get extra energy. So you could float turn 4, activate Jennifer Kale on turn 4, and then you could like just kind of profit there. So then you can play Infinite on 5, which is pretty nice because you're not playing anything out. So that's what we got for the 3 decks, but let's go ahead and move on over to my ratings for the card. So here's what we got for Nightmare. I think this card has very, very high just like combo potential, so like it can be very strong. It's got a lot of good snap conditions. Of course, the high rolls, got the low rolls, but like just in general, I think it's a good bluff snap card. So I think even like the strength there is going to be really solid. Flexible, I think it's a bit narrow. I don't really think this card is the most flexible, at least not right now. Maybe if as more lists develop and stuff, this card will be more flexible. But I think this card is kind of just going to have a couple homes, but it's going to be good in the couple homes that it has. Also, this variant looks like Bruno from Encanto, so kind of like good vibes there if you guys do like the Spotlight variant. And I don't know, this card could get adjusted. It already got adjusted from a 2-2 to a 3-1. So it had to have been good. I like remember Ajax was gonna be a 4-5, and they adjusted to a 5-7. We're like, oh, this is a huge nerf. Ajax is gonna suck. Why'd they make him a 5 cost, guys? Could you imagine if Ajax was a 4 cost? Let me know down below. What do you think Ajax would be broken if Ajax was a 4 cost like he was Dynamite? But anyway, when it comes to this card itself, I think it's a snap. I think it is kind of deck specific what you enjoy playing. Especially if you enjoy playing Sauron, if you enjoy being able to kind of like mitigate your snap conditions in the sense where you can actually gamble and bluff snap your opponent, I think pretty well with this card. I think it's going to be a good card. I still think it's probably one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite card this season. I just think the value of it is really solid. We'll see how Kid Omega does, because I think Kid Omega also could sneak in and become my favorite card. Or in here before Dormammu, maybe Dormammu is. But anyway, I do think this card is going to be a buy. Snap. Buy. Get this card, because I think this card is going to be really solid. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, well, it's RNG, it's going to be bad, you're going to have bad hits. You're going to have bad hits. Anytime, guys, you play Marvel Snap, and that's why I go with the final notes here. Anytime you play Marvel Snap, you're going to have good RNG, you're going to have bad RNG. You don't have perfect RNG every single game. We're playing a card game. We're playing a card game where you're shuffling cards the entire time. Like, that's just what happens at the end of the day. Some days you have good days. Some days you have bad days. It's life, you know? But it's always a safe strategy to wait until the weekend before you guys get cards. We have 3 cards coming out this next week with High Voltage, Overdrive coming out. You do also have Kid Omega. You do also have Cobra. You're going to have Nightmare. 3 different cards. High Voltage starts on Monday. You have on Tuesday Nightmare coming out. So just keep that in mind. If you haven't an Infinite yet, too, you're going to have another game mode to play, so it's going to be a little bit grind sesh going on. But I do want to say, guys, like, get the cards you want to play. You know, get cards that are archetype-specific and that are archetypes you enjoy. Like, if this isn't stuff that looks like it's going to be fun to you, don't get the card and save your resources for other cards coming out. Like, at the end of the day, resources still are so limited. Literally, they're so limited. So, like, use them on things you genuinely want to play, or things you think are going to get better in the future that you want to try out now. So just, like, keep that in mind when it comes to all of these new cards. You know, I can be wrong about cards. Other creators can be wrong about cards. At the end of the day, we're all theory crafting here. We don't know how the card's going to be until it actually releases. So, like, at the end of the day, we haven't had any, like, field testing with this to be like, yo, I know this card's going to be good because this, and that. The meta could change, you know? We don't have an OTA this week, but we have an OTA the following week. So stuff could also change in the OTA. Like, you know, cards are more likely to be able to get changed from, you know, the weeks they come out now, since they're in the snap packs, since everyone has more access opposed to them being limited to, you know, spotlight caches. So some of these new cards can get fixed or nerfed. So, like, if you just want to wait until after an OTA, also completely fine. Because at the end of the day, this is a game you guys are playing for fun. This is a game you guys are enjoying. You play it the way you want to play it. Spend your resources the way you want to spend it. And that's been it for Buy or Bust for you guys today. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you could feel free to like, comment down below. 4-cost Ajax, I think, would be broken. Like imagine if we had 4-cost Darkhawk right now. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, a great Father's Day for all of you that are fathers or maybe becoming fathers. It's going to be my first Father's Day. I'm very excited for Sunday. And then I might have a brand new series coming out on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. But until the next time, it's been real. God bless. And yeah, Tucker out.